Sorry for the technical delay. The YouTube is being YouTube.
It's working now?
The screen says it's working. Hopefully it's working. If not, I am going to also record this with my little phone.
There's been a request to move public input up after the pledge.
Okay, well, first we need to have a swearing in. Okay, everybody stand and raise your right hand. I state your name. I, Jim Brown, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
That I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of this state,
the Constitution of this state,
and will faithfully perform the duties of the office of Planning Commissioner
and will faithfully perform the duties of Planning Commissioner
in and for the Township of Inland,
in for the Township of Inland,
County of Benzie, the state of Michigan,
Township of Benzie, State of Michigan,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God. If I can just get signatures there, and then one there.
I gotta have a separate copy. But you're the one supposed to sign one of those.
Oh.
You said there and here.
Yeah, pen, but there and pass.
There it is.
Do I sign there?
Just one time.
Off to a great start.
That's. Mary's not here, so we haven't.
Well, now,
All right, thank you.
you can sign in again.
Yeah.
Having done that, a little late, 6:08, we call the meeting to order. We start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And a roll call. And for those watching, since the changeover of the Planning Commission, I checked with the MTA. I cannot be a chair or co-chair, which is fine, but they said as far as running this meeting, I'm going to run it up to the point of election of officers and then pass it off. So roll call. Clark.
Here.
O'Connor.
Mhm.
And I know you just said
Truex, John.
Truex.
Yep.
Yep. Brower here. And Mary Dew is excused. One of the things we also signed is just our attendance record. So that we should show that we were really here.
Done, I guess. Very, very lucky.
And do we want to do a quick election of officers before?
We get
Input? Why don't we do public input? Public input.
I want to thank my fellow planning commission members, Laura Canal, Mary Dew, Al Thomas, Paul Huffman, and our zoning administrator, Jim Willard, for the work that we have accomplished during our past years. I'm sorry we have ended in this manner. It's true that we have a staggered term limits so that we don't have a complete turnover of the commission at one time. The terms are one person to have 1 year term, 2 people to have 2-year terms, 1 person to have a 3-year term, 1 board member for the duration of their elected term of 4 years. There was never to be a time when 4 and 5 would be changed at the same time. It was just 2 weeks ago that we met with Zach, a representative from Networks Northwest, to explain what we've worked on and what we wanted to keep the same, what we wanted to move forward with, and to have his expertise and experiences to help us avoid any pitfall with any new state laws and mandates. I'm sorry to say that we now have 4 out of 5 members who don't have any clue nor any understanding of what we've already accomplished or how to move it forward. As a former board member of this commission, I placed all my materials in Jim Brower's mailbox on Tuesday, January 14th, the day after our regular township board meeting, when I heard for the first time that I was being replaced. I want to thank everyone for your trust in me to serve you faithfully in this position. I wish everyone well. And with that, I'm going to leave because I don't feel well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
And I'm Laura Trammell, and I'll second what she said. The way this was handled was not only completely disrespectful to all the members that have served for multiple years, some decades, but from my understanding, it's not. So the only way that people could be kicked off during the middle of the term is if they were in violation, they were found malfeasant, not all these words, and after a public hearing. So that's not the way this happens. You each serve a term. We were all either in the middle of a term or in part of our term. Mary should have been on throughout her 4-year election. Now, if we were going to resign, that would be different. We weren't even asked. It wasn't discussed with us before. It was announced at a board meeting that the planning commission members were not going to be reappointed. That is not how this works. I will say it is a good time, I think, because we were meeting with Networks Northwest to rewrite the master plan or revise the master plan. So you will have help getting through information about what you're even doing. The zoning administrator normally comes to these meetings. I'm not sure where he is. But I don't know if there's anything you need to ask me, because I would like to leave as well. Now's the time.
Just so you know, none of us knew anything.
Well,
We saw it on the,
Yeah.
on the agenda that these appointments were going to be made, but
well, I'm
Okay.
sort of torn because I wanted to resign anyways, and I said if a replacement could be found for me, I would be happy with that. However, as the chair of the planning commission, my role was always to make sure that we do things the way it's written.
right.
And this is not the way it's written. So that's not a great start, honestly. For I do appreciate all of you stepping up. It's not an easy job. It can be very time consuming if it's done right. Hopefully you take advantage of all the trainings that are available. Michigan State Extension has a wonderful trainer that can come and do some intro to zoning training for you. And others as well. They have a huge list of all the things that you guys can learn. MGA has a lot of training online you can watch. When I started, we had a zoning administrator that was very knowledgeable, so we had that in our favor. I'm not sure that's still the case, but would be a good opportunity for everyone to learn the proper way. If this is even allowed. I don't know if anybody's gonna pursue looking into it. I doubt it, just because it's obvious. Mary, who's, I think, was on the planning commission, I don't know, 17 years, maybe 15 years. I don't think to be just dumped is pretty, it's pretty not good. So, I don't wanna, discount the fact that you're all here and you're all willing to do it, because it is appreciated. The township, as a township member, I do appreciate your willingness to stay, and I appreciate the fact that you're willing to learn, because it is a very important job. And like I said, I was ready to be done. I've been on for 8 years, so I was ready to step aside and let someone else. But I guess that's it. So any other questions?
I'm sure there will be. Right now.
This is all my, this is my zoning book, and these are all the minutes and notes that I have. We do have a couple of active applications. The zoning administrator will have to walk you guys through. Right now, we're sort of just waiting to hear on the one, and then I think next, in February, he's already scheduled a public hearing, which is not great for your first meeting to be a public hearing about a rezoning application.
Have you guys reviewed that?
No, we haven't seen anything, and that's part of the problem.
Yeah. Well, that's not a
You
problem.
don't schedule a public hearing before the planning commission even sees the application.
That's part of the problem, is from what I've heard, and that's a huge issue, because the planning commission is the only one that can call a public hearing. The zoning administrator can't.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. I think it's a perfect time for everybody, zoning administrator included, to start from the beginning and learn the way it is, not the way that they think it is. So it is a good time to start from scratch. Get that Michigan State. I have, this is the class that she did. I only have my copy, but it's a simple, whose role is what do you guys do? She did an hour training or something.
Is that the citizen planner?
Planning commission roles and responsibilities, community development and planning.
That's something that.
Mary Riley.
Oh,
So,
okay.
but you guys can look at this, just even tonight, for your first meeting, to read through this, and it's pretty simple. Start from the beginning. I would say that would be something you guys could talk about tonight, just to do, and then call her and try to get her to come in. But you definitely need to, communicate with the zoning administrator, because if he's scheduled a public hearing for your first, like, in meeting in February, that's gonna have to wait, or you'll have to have another meeting prior to review the application. My advice would be, just, it's in the book. This is your Bible. Everything you do is in the zoning ordinance, so if it's not in here, you can't do it. What I say. So this is all I have. I do have a bunch of, like, computer files as well, all this stuff, but, I don't know how much.
The work that you guys were doing on the new zoning language, were you taking minutes, or was Rose taking minutes?
Rose has the minutes, and every month she would take minutes as of the changes, and then Jim Weller was making a draft, which included our changes. So he has that, he has a draft up and running. The problem with his draft is, I don't believe that it actually, like, highlights what
What's
was
changing,
changed.
yeah.
It's just what
What you guys been
we
discussing?
want it to look like. So that was part of the thing, was to show it used to be here, now it's gonna be here.
Mhm.
So it definitely, you could usually start from the beginning. Like I said, regardless of the fact that it went down like this, I do think it is a good time to refresh, not just the planning commission, but the zoning administrator's role as well, so.
Thank you, Laura.
I don't know, you guys can take, this is this, everybody should get a zoning ordinance, Rose can get that for you, Rose can print those off. That's the book, I think they just came out with a new book too. And then she can get you access to the MTA website to get all the training and everything, and then there's in-person trainings as well. Any other questions?
No?
All
Thank
right,
you.
good luck.
Thank you. Any other public input? No? All right, moving on to election of officers. In the past, there is a requirement for a chair and a secretary and an option for a vice chair, which apparently a lot of planning commissions do in case the chair can't make it, the vice chair can serve as chair. I guess we can either vote on a slate or do it individually. Is there a preference?
Usually, I know in the talking about the vice chair and the bylaws, the inland bylaws that we're gonna review, the vice chair and secretary were one and the same. And I don't know if that's.
The existing bylaws make it kind of unclear. The MTA suggested bylaws separate the roles, but there's no reason. Technically, the chair can be the chair and secretary, the vice chair can be the vice chair and secretary, or they can be three separate positions. So we're going to do it individually. Why don't we start with the chair, and then I can hand the rest of the meeting off to whoever we elect as the chair. Is there interest in being the chair by anyone? Or I will make a suggestion.
I don't, I'm too new.
Well, I would nominate Jim Clark as chair. He's actually served this position in the past.
Yeah, that'd be good.
And I think he does a good job of running meetings. So,
I second it.
all right. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Hi.
Aye. Any opposed? Jim, it's your meeting.
Okay, I would like to nominate the vice chair / secretary, Anastasia, because she's expressed an interest in hopefully doing both.
I would second that.
I agree.
Any thoughts, concerns, or questions? All in favor? Aye.
I'm in favor.
Okay, great. All right, so we got that taken care of. I didn't want to really say anything to Laura. Our zoning administrator quit today. Do we have his laptop? Good, good. Because apparently he was taking notes on changes to the
I don't know how
zoning.
much is left. The only thing I've gone through so far is the cell phone and everything with the emails.
Who was it?
Jim
Jim Waller.
Weller.
So I will get into the computer and see what he left us.
Okay, thank
Do
you.
you have any parting comments, or just came in and said hasta la vista?
He called me Friday, told me he was done. He wasn't happy about the email saying he didn't have the authority to call the public hearing when he was told that was his responsibility. And that Monday was probably gonna be his last day. So take the weekend, think about it. And first thing this morning, he sent a letter of resignation. And dropped all the stuff on my desk.
Okay.
For those watching in YouTube land, the disembodied voice is our supervisor, Dave Davis.
Hopefully they hear the voice. Okay, approval of the agenda. We all have a copy of the agenda. And some of these things are going to change since we don't have our zoning administrator to make report, but I'll entertain a motion to approve it.
I move that we approve the agenda as submitted. Actually, with a change that we rotated the order of public input and election of officers.
I'll second that. Any discussion, concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we've got, and I kind of question, this January 6th special meeting minutes we don't have.
I can address that a little bit. I spoke to Roseworth, who my understanding was the recording secretary for the planning commission. She gave me what notes she had. She had apparently, and actually should have asked Laura before she left. She sent draft minutes to Laura, but never got anything back. So no minutes for December were approved. For the January 6th minute, or January 6th minutes were
Okay,
created.
why don't we table the minutes until our next meeting? I'll go through Laura's documents here because she said she had some items in there and we can vote on those.
Okay.
Bylaws. We have two different, well, actually three different sets of bylaws. One that was MTA put together. Could we get the copy of the existing, the draft copy? I don't think so. Okay. Which I don't necessarily think we need.
Which is the draft copy?
Oh, here it is.
The draft copy is very close to when I originally spoke to Rose, she didn't know where the bylaws were. At least that's what I was told. Supervisor Davis gave me a copy that matches what Mary Dew forwarded to us in an email, though formatted slightly differently. And thinking at first that we did not have bylaws, and actually that's a requirement of the Michigan Planning Enabling Act for planning commissions. I pulled the MTA suggested bylaws off their website and went through that and reduced it to what I felt pertained mostly to us. Some are for larger municipalities. Some of the things they have in there didn't necessarily apply. But then in going through the existing bylaws that apparently were adopted June 10th of 2020, there are a couple of things in there that having served on bylaw committees in different capacities, probably most recently for the airport authority, I was on there, chaired the bylaw ad hoc committee twice. One of the things that I would not include is under C3. It's basically parroting the Open Meetings Act. when minutes should be submitted, draft minutes should be submitted, and so forth. In part, it hasn't been happening the way the bylaws state they should, or the Open Meetings Act state they should. And I think there are a couple of places where including that verbiage or verbiage from other places is trying to be articulating that doesn't help. And I go to my next point would be in meetings, section 2, under A, regular meetings. I think the way it's stated is problematic because it states regular meeting shall be held third Monday of the month at 6 p.m., which is fine if you're never going to change that, but occasionally we do change that. And it's done in a way that technically is a violation of the bylaws because the bylaws don't get changed. And if you read the last sentence in section 2A, when a regular meeting falls on a legal holiday or upon a day resulting in conflict, the Planning Commission shall, if possible, select a suitable alternative meeting date in the same month as the originally scheduled meeting. Well, we're violating it today because it's a national holiday. So I think including language like that usually doesn't help. In item 2C, notices, when trying to be helpful, I think it winds up not being helpful. It calls out the paper of record. The Planning Enabling Act requires notices be put in the paper of record. This is just trying to clarify what that paper of record is. And it's the Record Eagle, Traverse City Record Eagle, and the Benzie County Record Patriot as a courtesy posting. I think that language isn't necessary, just knowing that we have to do notices, which is part of the Enabling Act. I was actually going to suggest that we postpone anything about the bylaws until next meeting, until I got to section 2 meetings E agenda, where the existing bylaws has the zoning administrator responsible for preparing tentative agenda. And the Enabling Act doesn't specify, but the MTA suggested minutes definitely specify the chair of the Planning Commission should be the one putting the agenda together. And then on item J, parliamentary procedure, I, for a long time, have been a fan of including Robert's Rules newly revised as part of the policy for any body. And I've had some, and this is open for discussion. I did not include it because whenever I've been involved in a body that's adopted Robert's Rules, they never follow Robert's Rules and never take the time to learn Robert's Rules properly. So I think as long as we try to do things as properly as we can, I think we'd be better off, if you would. Then the only other well, I guess two other changes. One, under section 3, duties of a planning commission, I added an item, the second to the last page, capital improvement program. Part of a planning commission's responsibility is looking at, taking the master plan and projecting whatever planning we're talking about and looking at the cost. But specifically, a capital improvement program is a financial exercise, and we will have help. The Finance Committee has offered its help. Thank you, Tom.
Still in Florida.
Still in Florida.
Some are still in where it's not snowing.
So,
But, but in, meeting with Maynard, or proper pronunciation, Maynard Casterison today, they really encourage the planning commission to work on a capital improvement program, even though technically we aren't required to do one because we don't have a water system or a sewer system. In those cases, you must do one. It's just good fiscal responsibility to do one anyway. And ours will be much easier because we don't have those two big utilities. Then the only other change was on conflict of interest, item 3. I just stated that here it states 300-foot notice. There's still a requirement in the bylaws that I put together following MTA's lead. It's more inclusive. It's neighboring properties as opposed to putting a footage in there. So
I'll make a motion. The existing bylaws are Inland Township Planning Commission bylaws, pages 1 of 4, those are 4. And then the new bylaws are dated January 2025, 3 pages. I make a motion that we accept and approve the bylaws in the Township Planning Commission bylaws dated January 2025.
So we're approving this one.
Yes. Yes. The one that made some changes to
Yeah,
that.
then you just want to add to it a little bit.
Second that.
I second it.
Any further discussion, questions, concerns?
and bylaws can always be changed by a majority vote of the commission.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We're not as specific. And certainly Robert's rules, some of the things that we change within the meetings is we get public input more than just public input times. So, which we try to foster a bit to get some feedback, limited feedback. So, okay. Next on our agenda, zoning administrator report. We don't have that. Unfinished business. Scott Horace proposal, that's another zoning administrator. So we'll need to do some digging into those. And if we can get that laptop cleared up, maybe we can do some digging on that one. Okay, new business. Discuss planning commission priorities, workflow.
Again, another document that I put together, having read through the Michigan Planning Enabling Act several times, is basically just what I consider the highlights. Don't consider it an accurate read or a Bible or anything other than just my view on the whole thing. I encourage you to read the Enabling Act yourself. There's a lot of pages in there that don't apply to township. They're for larger municipalities. But I think this captures most of the important stuff. And I took the liberty, other than the headings, which typically are bolded, I took the liberty of bolding phrases like will and shall be and shall also. Because in legalese terms, a lot of this stuff picked up with my engagement of the gravel pit fight 5 years ago. Will and shall are directives; they're not suggestions. If it says shall, it's something that we have to do. May is a suggestion. You can take it or leave it, but it's probably a good idea to do something like that if it says may, but it's just a little thing. But there are a number of things as you read through this, and we don't need to go into great detail tonight. I didn't particularly highlight anything, but there are a number of things that we need to be doing. My hope is that Networks Northwest would have led us through the correct way of doing it as we approach revising our master plan in any way, shape, or form. We need to notify our 4 neighboring townships. We need to notify things like Benzie Bus, because they run a bus through our system, the road commission, the county, because they have a master plan as well. And I think possibly even the state, but in procedure to adopt and amend a master plan and other MTA material that I included, there's a lot of, as I recall, a letter, notice of intent to prepare a master plan that spells out the language we need to use. So we just basically fill in the blanks and send it to their planning commissions and the appropriate people at each of the places. So there are a number of things that we need to follow. This kind of highlights it.
I'd also recommend on YouTube, we're being recorded. If you go to the live section, you get to see the special meeting that they had, the Planning Commission had with Networks Northwest. He was helping us with a master plan. And he did a good job kind of saying how they would plan on going. One of the big things is a survey going out to the citizens. And I think you'll notice here that there's a number 3 is the master plan special meeting that we'll be having on the 3rd, which is February 3rd on a Monday with Networks Northwest. And I believe that they're going to be working specifically on those questions in the survey. So put that on your calendar. But yeah, this was quite interesting. On seeing, I knew that some of the communities had to be noticed, but I didn't know about the, like Cherryland Co-op, maybe DTE and
the utilities.
Utilities, yeah. And since there's no planning commission for the county, I think would it go to the clerk, or did it say? It didn't really say.
It didn't say, and I think we can find out from each of these bodies, like the road commission, who should we send it to? No.
Okay, so
I was going to say the likely answer is I don't really care, but we've done our part.
yeah, that's right. You're reaching out.
And then when we have it finalized, they get 63 days to comment before we can have a public hearing, because they might have a comment that drastically changes our.
Plus, it's got to go to the board before we can have a public hearing too. So that's some restrictions I didn't know about, which is good information here. Anything else, Jim? I think you'll probably notice when you read through that, some questions probably pop up. We can bring those up.
Yeah, and then as I say, don't take my interpretation as gospel. But I think it's pretty close. And in most cases, this is directly quoting as opposed to, my verbal interpretation.
Working with the Conservation District Board, they are aware of the different townships going through the same thing we're going through as far as the master plan. So those notifications have gone out, and I don't know if it went directly to the Conservation District. I'll have to find out. But I mentioned that our township was doing the same thing. Okay, review meeting dates and times. We are normally every third Monday, but there's times when there's nothing on the agenda that we might call it off, but I think as long as that works for everybody.
Is 6 o'clock set in stone or?
No.
Earlier?
No, nothing set in stone.
I mean, it's up to you guys, I guess. Like I
There's,
say, I told you earlier.
Yeah, you're early.
And either at 5, I get up at 4 on Tuesdays.
So right now it's close to midnight.
Yeah, I'm in bed.
would 5 o'clock work better? I mean-
Anything, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's what we do is with 6 o'clock, we're trying to get
Yeah, I know.
more
for
people in the
input.
seats.
What could we do? Can you do like our session for early and then the input? Try to get some things accomplished beforehand. We gotta go by the,
We have to, if we're up and running, it's open public and Open
yeah,
Meetings Act is,
if they go too long, I may not be able to. If it gets out of hand, people are arguing,
I think if we have a public hearing, that would be something, because those,
It's an issue.
when we were doing the public hearings for the gravel pit up on Oakley Road, those things, there were a lot of people.
Yeah.
We had to have it out in the barn and a lot of people in there and.
That was in the town, our township?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that was in our township.
The first public hearing, which was actually in Homestead, went till 10:30 because I lost count after the 70th person wanted their 3 minutes of comment.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
it went on and
Yeah, I
on.
see that.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was painful. Well, it's good because there was a lot of people that
Yeah, that was a big
came out.
issue. I didn't realize that was in our township.
There was only one person that stood up and said, well, I don't care. The rest of them did care.
Oh, yeah. I know, yeah. I understand.
I think another thing that might come up as we're trying to sort out our zoning administrator is if somebody comes and wants to do something, I think we should, as much as we can, call a special meeting, and even if only 3 of us can show up to address it, or I don't know what the answer is from the standpoint of any one of the board members trying to help an applicant walk through, an application. Guess it depends on what they're doing.
And I think that's really the key is what they were planning on doing.
If we can try to sort that out before the meeting on the
So,
3rd.
but, yeah, we're planning every third Monday at 6, but what's this, February 3rd? We already got something doing February 3rd?
Yeah, that's, well, I'm surprised it was a special meeting. It's Networks Northwest that's coming in to help us with the master plan.
Oh,
So that one's been set, and I'm assuming the notifications have gone out on that one, and
I wouldn't assume. I'd have to check the door. I know regular meetings are posted at least through March.
Special meetings, as long as they're online and posted on the door.
Special meetings need to be.
All hearings have to go in paper.
Sure, yeah. Well, I mean, this one's really a work session, which is not quite as challenging.
Special meetings need to be posted minimum of 18 hours before they happen.
So ordinance changes, I think we're gonna have to dig through, if we can get the perhaps again off the laptop if it was there, or because it sounded like Laura was saying that Jim Weller was busy typing, and hopefully we can get those.
Hopefully we can get them. From my understanding, having watched the meeting 2 weeks ago, when Zach from Networks Northwest was here, he raised the question of why why are we working on ordinances before we're working on the master plan?
Right.
Because the master plan may have large impact on ordinances, so, you know, cart and horse. I think for my 2 cents, I think our focus should be more towards the master plan at this point, because I think we've got a lot more to do than simply look at, you know, well, this should be zone commercial, this should be zone whatever. I think a big focus is the survey to go out to the township. You know, where does the township want us to go? And it's not just zoning, it's, do we want a new fire hall? Do we want a community center instead? Do we want to not do either of those? Whatever we can to reduce our taxes? Do, you know, what are the desires of the township should drive the direction of the master plan more than, you know, the 4 or 5 of us.
It sounds like Networks Northwest has some really good demographic information that we can glean off of and hopefully get some good feedback. So I think that February 3rd should be an interesting meeting, starting out with the process of asking those questions.
And that's at 6 o'clock. Okay.
So I think we've already talked about ordinance changes, and I'd agree to put that off to hear what Networks Northwest has to say, kind of guide us through. There were some concerns that I do have that we've run into. Some of the definitions of rural residential, you can have outdoor storage. The gentleman came in here and he wanted to have outdoor storage that he can rent to other people. And I know Laura contacted the attorney. The attorney said, well, it's not clear. So, okay, you can have commercial outdoor storage. I think that needs to be tightened up there too. Other question in my mind is blight. I know you're working on talking about blight changes. I could think of a few places that I've seen that are blight, but our ordinance says you can have outdoor storage. So how do you define the difference between somebody's personal outdoor storage and blight? I mean, I've got a picture of what blight would be, but somebody else might say, well, that's my business or that's my pleasure. Or
We'll know it when we see it. And actually, you bring up a good point about ordinances. My understanding is that we can change an ordinance anytime we want, as long as we follow the procedures of discussing it, having a public hearing, having the approval of the board. You know, so if there are some things that need to be tightened up, we can attack that one thing or 2 things or 3 things. We don't have to go through the entire set of ordinances and approve it as a group. Not that there's no one thing that I'm suggesting we go after. It's just a procedural thing that, you know, as we're doing the review for the master plan, as we're doing what would follow the review of all the ordinances and any changes we'd want to make in one big public hearing for that. It doesn't preclude us paying attention to community concerns over a particular type of issue that would require us to more clearly define, you know, what is blight, or as your example, or, you know, any of other number of issues that have kind of come up over the past year.
The outdoor storage, there was a difference between if the outdoor storage is closed or open.
right,
That was the nuance.
right. You wanted to build indoor storage too, and that wouldn't fly. But outdoor storage that they can, yeah, for people other than himself was approved. So some of those items. Okay.
Am I correct in thinking that approval process for non-conforming splits was kind of part of the ordinance changes discussion?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I wanted to add here. One is there's a citizens planner training that I do believe is mandatory for the planning commission to take. And the township reimburses that. At least that's what it was when I was started out in that position. It's online and it's pretty basic, but it gives a good idea of what we do and pitfalls of what we might not want to do. So it's I think it's something worthwhile looking into. And I think Rose can set that up for you guys. I've taken it and it's good training. Another thing is we do have some properties that I would say are non-conforming. Some in particular in the rural residential, a minimum of 2.5 acres. And I discovered that our assessor has never been given direction on how to handle those. When splits come in, the assessor takes a look at it, zoning administrator takes a look at it, and then they approve it or they send it to the planning commission or zoning board of appeals, depending on the process. But our assessor has in his mind, if it's within a certain percentage, then 2.49 acres is okay. I talked to him and I said, that's got to come before the planning commission. And there was a debate on, well, how do you define, because some property lines go into the road and some property lines go into lakes. I still think that should come before the planning commission. And I would like I don't know if we need a proposal to talk to the
It's already
assessment.
been put out to him that anything that the survey comes in under 2.5, no matter what GIS or anything like that says, goes to the planning commission. And GIS or whatever says differently, he can send those supporting documents with it. But
yeah, it puts him in a bad
yeah, he
situation.
was never given guidance,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
we have clarified and given him guidance.
Okay, so we don't need. That's great. Because after talking to him, he says he's kind of shooting from the hip, and that's not good to put him in that situation. Okay, that's all I had. Anything else? Public input?
We already heard it.
Yeah, I know you guys heard.
Yeah, I didn't know that was going on. I'll be
Yeah.
honest with that. So there might be issues there.
He says, oh, we were in the old terms, but I've only appointed one person to this board, and that was Mary Dew 2 years ago. Which means everybody there had been there longer than 3 years. So whoever they thought was setting their terms was not setting terms.
Yeah, there was never discussion about terms.
Right.
So it's
So
a tough
this
situation.
gets us within legal boundaries, which is what I'm just attempting to push the township forward in every aspect, is not be breaking the law.
Yeah.
And you're probably gonna hear a lot of, well, that's not the way we've always done it. Like, I understand, like, probably when you were chair before, Sarah ran a lot of things that was outside her scope.
She would talk, she and I would talk and go through and put the agendas together. And yeah, I mean, she would put out the documentation the Friday before the meeting. And so we'd have an opportunity to do that. And I said, well, just put the agenda in with that stuff. And
Which is
it
fine.
makes sense.
It was just.
My understanding was that
After
was,
you left, it was just all put on Jim.
Yeah.
And that's not the way it's supposed to work, but I think going forward, you guys all understand the goal and that I mean, you need to get through the master plan because what we've got now is cut and pasted from, I think, the county's old master plan. Our policies and procedures are cut and pasted. I mean, everything's just been cut and pasted, so we just want to master plan that is ours as a township and actually shows where we want to go so that we're all heading in the right direction. I appreciate all you guys set up. We'll take this on. And look forward to good communication because I didn't get that from last time.
yeah,
Which actually is another thing as you read the enabling act. We owe the board a report on an annual basis, which includes our attendance record of all things. So, I mean, there are things that the supervisor's point that haven't been happening, which, you know, okay, they haven't been happening. Let's looking forward to the things that we're supposed to be doing.
do we know if Rose is listening in?
No idea.
Just-
We'll have the video, if we need to go through it, make notes, or make minutes.
Well, Anastasia is actually doing that, so I just want to make sure we let Rose know that I'll send her an email and let her know that how we're proceeding. I just made the note too on the attendance there, the roles. Anything else? We had a public input. I will.
I move we adjourn.
All in favor? Aye. Hour long. Wow.
Cool.
Thank you, YouTube audience, for the patience on the little bumpy start we had there.
How do you get that? Google it.
Well, you don't need a YouTube account. You just go to YouTube and then in their search bar, put in ask
2.5 acres.
It'll bring up a bunch of things that have
I've got,
the round purple eye,
no, it's Yoga Gym.
purple circle. And then you go to live.
The live feed.
But I had received stuff from you, so yeah.
Night all. I know
Yeah.
that one.
I'm just gonna run out and start my truck real quick.
Your name pops up.